Thank God that this chapter has only 22 pages left. We're finally getting there. We're finally getting to shorter chapters, and therefore shorter, more reasonable episodes. Hi, I'm Nikki. Welcome once again to the Samurai 8 cast. We're going to talk about lots of exciting stuff, and I'm very excited for this episode. It's the third episode, but I can still be excited. A lot of cool things happened this time. This is presumably the end of the introductory arc. I'm not entirely sure if this arc is actually ending with this chapter or if it's just continuing based on how the last page of this chapter goes, but we'll get into that then. Despite the length of this chapter, I have some pretty cool stuff to talk about today, but first we're going to, as always, start out with a summary of the key factors that have happened in the past in the series. Then I'm going to go through a chapter summary. There's only 22 pages. Hopefully this won't take as long as it has the past two times because we had a 73-page chapter and then a 33-page chapter, so it seems like we're finally reaching more reasonable page loads per chapter. Hopefully, eventually we'll just start hitting 15 and then it'll take 5 minutes for us to just go through what happens entirely. So along with the chapter summary, then we're going to go into some discussion about the characters because we got some good character development, especially for Nanashi. Then we're going to go into the theme that this small arc has given us and discuss that for a little bit. And then I have some other points to discuss, such as the history of samurai swords and how they were integrated into a samurai's life and how important they actually were to samurai families. We're going to go a little bit into wedding cakes and wedding cake culture and segue into that about the first ship that is available with the protagonist, which is Hachimaru and Nanashi. We won't be talking about ships maybe too much on this podcast. It depends how much content we actually get. I only want to talk about canonical content, and since we received canonical content this chapter, I definitely want to talk about that. Finally, we're just going to end on how maybe this is the end of an arc, or it might be the midway point of the introductory arc, but my predictions for what's going to happen next based on what we've seen so far, and we'll close up there. So, let's get started. The basic arc summary is not too long. We don't have to really go into much right now. Basically, there are three pig brothers who are driving a tank around and destroying the countryside and aiming for the castle town that Hachimaru fell into while he was flying on Hayotaro's back. He met Nanashi, who is a shut-in just like himself, who has never drawn a samurai sword but is a pupil at the dojo of this castle town. They become friends, and Hachimaru has just led Nanashi outside. Nanashi did this based on a bet with Hachimaru concerning samurai fighting games, in which Nanashi is the number 2 player on the planet, in which Hachimaru is actually the number 1 player on the planet. Without knowing this, Nanashi agreed to battle Hachimaru, and if Nanashi lost, then Nanashi would have to go outside. Nanashi did lose, and subsequently had to go outside with Hachimaru, and we're picking up from there, really. So now we're going to go into the actual chapter summary. We are today going over chapter 3, Cutting the Tank, for obviously Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru. If you didn't know the title, I don't know why you're here, really. But anyway, so we start off with what we presume to be the wolf bushi that were mentioned last chapter. These wolf bushi are originally protectors of the castle town, but because the pig brothers destroyed the outskirts of the town and the countryside, these wolf bushi have instead decided to go check that out. So we see them with their own holders. It looks like they might be samurai based on how their facial features are. It seems like when there is a cut in the side of your face towards your jawline, up your cheekbone, that seems to be an indication that you are a samurai to show cyborg features, but we're not entirely sure. But it seems that one of them has a boar holder and another seems to have an actual wolf holder. So maybe they're just called wolf bushi or wolf samurai because of the title, but not because of the holders. They are checking out the town and see that it's destroyed completely. They can't find any survivors, which is another reminder within the series that the death will be a prominent feature, and that we, of course, throughout this like good journey of this character who is going to learn to become a samurai and fulfill his dreams, there is also going to be death and hardship throughout it. Of course, when they say that, a man pops out carrying an axe and goes after these samurai, but he immediately gets knocked on his ass. And because of this, they ask who he is, and he states, "I should ask the same of you," and actually tries to pull out the sword that belongs to one of the samurai. It was thrown at him to stop him from attacking them with the axe, but it won't open because it has a bio ID reader. So they state that it's a safety feature to keep it sheathed, and that no one can draw that katana but the person that owns the katana. And so the man recognizes them as the Bushi Legion of Akagi Castle, and it turns out that they are there to investigate what had happened. The man states what had happened, which is that these pigmen, who he calls bandits, were in a tank and they attacked out of nowhere. And he states that the tank looked like a giant cake, which I didn't recognize that last time in last episode, that it looks like a giant cake. I just thought this might be the design of the tank itself because of the hot tub that's within it that holds the, who I've been dubbing the oldest pig brother. But it definitely looks like a piece of cake now that I'm looking at it. It's stacked in a way that has a small top, which is presumably where they exit from, a middle portion, which presumably holds where the hot tub is, and a third lower portion where the two other brothers sit, and then that all sits on top of the wheels. And as the tank is charging towards the castle town, we see that Hachimaru is talking to Nanashi and asking what to call them. Again, I'm going to use they, them pronouns with Nanashi because we're not entirely sure how Kishimoto is going to reconcile this story with Nanashi and with Nanashi's gender. So we will be using they, them pronouns as it is the gender neutral pronoun. Nanashi states that they call me Nanashi because I'm nameless, and Hachimaru says that that will work and starts to call Nanashi that name. While Hachimaru is introducing Nanashi to Hayataro, which is Hachimaru's pet holder, there are two samurai pupils who are walking behind it, and they see Hayataro, and they push Nanashi out of the way and say that to Hayataro that Hayataro is a bona fide key holder. And they state that it looks a lot like Sensei's key holder, but this one is a dog, and they're in awe about it. And they're asking Hachimaru if he is a real key samurai at his age, and that it's awesome. And they are just asking him tons of questions and about who he is, what his name is, and of course Hachimaru is trying to take this in stride, and he's being very friendly, and he states what his name is, he's from the next town over, and that all he can really teach them is lessons about underwear because of Dharma. For these few panels that were shown here actually give us a good implication that holders who belong to samurai are actually completely different from regular holders that regular civilians can have. And this is why these samurai holders can seemingly transform and mold their bodies and their outerwear to protect the samurai that they're with, and also mold themselves to make armor around the samurai. Nanashi sees that Hachimaru is giving this attention to these other people and decides to leave. And Nanashi actually ends up sitting in what I presume to be a shrine in front of the statue of Fudo-Myo, who is the warrior samurai god of all samurai, especially in this series. And Nanashi is stating that I'm just not like him. I'll never be like that. And as we know, Nanashi talks with their hands, and Nanashi's hands are stating, why have you come to sit before the statue of Fudo-Myo? Is it because you want to be a samurai like Hachimaru? And Nanashi's other hand states, do you feel like you finally made a friend, and now others have come along and taken him from you? You can't pretend you don't feel that way. You're drawn to him. And Hachimaru, when that is spoken, looks around and realizes that Nanashi has left. And when he asks the other pupils about that, they state that they didn't even know that someone else was here with them. While they are discussing that, an explosion happens, and the cake tank appears. And the Pig brothers, the oldest one, states, I know there's a valuable samurai orb around here. It's worth a ton of money. Anyone, bring it to me. And while Nanashi is sitting in front of the statue of Fudomiyo, they hear someone yell, "Dojo destroyers!" and they see that there is smoke coming from around where their dormitory was, as they were standing outside of their dormitory when they left. So the pupils are stating, "Where are the instructors? The waterway below, I'll go call them." And while this is happening, the oldest pig brother points the cannon at Hachimaru and the two pupils and Hayotaro and states, "If you will not obey, then die." And everyone's obviously yelling, "Don't point that over here." And Hachimaru goes to draw his sword, but he can't draw it because it's actually not his sword. As we recall from last chapter, he picked up the sword on Nanashi's floor, which actually ended up being Nanashi's sword. When he was blown out of the sky with Hayotaro, the sword that he had fell. But I don't know where. And he believes that this sword might have been his, but when he tries to draw it, he can't. The explosion happens, but Hayotaro actually uses this power that I just discussed, where he takes the outer layer of his body and brings it as a shield in front of Hachimaru and the two pupils to protect them. And Hachimaru states, "Hayotaro, did you protect us?" And Hayotaro responds with, "Meow meow." And Hachimaru responds, "What? You smell the same gunpowder as when you got shot out of the sky?" Which this immediately indicates that the key holder of the samurai has some sort of connection with the samurai that they can communicate regardless of the fact that they are two completely different people and they're two different beings. This might have something to do with the samurai soul. I'll discuss this a little further in the discussion points. So Hachimaru, of course, using his brain, states, "Oh, so you mean this is what shot us down?" And the pupils are running for it. And the three pig brothers are discussing the tank. One of them states, "Bro, they're still alive." The oldest one states, "Is it the wolf samurai?" "No, that can't be right." And the other one's just like, "What now, bro?" And he states, "Give them everything we've got." Nanashi finally appears on the scene and sees what has happened and sees that Hachimaru is having trouble drawing the sword. And Hachimaru is stating, "This katana, it's not mine," and remembers that he picked up a katana from the floor, but he states that's Nanashi's sword, and that's why he can't draw it, but he doesn't understand why. Nanashi is biting their nails so fervently and is just an anxious mess about this and states that it's their katana, Hachimaru grabbed it by accident, and with the bio ID, it will only recognize Nanashi. The cannon shoots off more cannonballs towards Hayotaro and Hachimaru, and Nanashi is just completely upset about this whole thing. They see that Hachimaru's arm gets completely blown off, but Hayotaro does protect Hachimaru again with a protective wall. And Nanashi is in awe about this whole thing and starts to have some inner conflict with themselves where their hands are talking and states that, "Don't you want to be a samurai just like him? Then go and save him. That's your katana he's carrying." And Nanashi states, "I can't do it, Mr. Right. It's impossible. Miss Left, help me like you always do." And Miss Left, the left hand, states, "No, I cannot assist you. Not this time. I know how you feel. You care about Hachimaru, don't you? Heaven sent this friend to you, and now he's in trouble. You are the only one who can help him." You see that there are other samurai pupils who are trying to attack this tank, but it's not working. It's too tough. And the oldest brother, while drinking more wine and eating more cake, laughs and states that they'll never break through the ultra-hard exterior of their armored tank, the Hagen Sweets #2. I don't know what happened in #1, but I guess Hagen Sweets #2 is pretty good. And they state, "Give it up, fools. This home of ours is invincible." So I guess they live in there too. That's interesting. But anyway, Nanashi is still fighting with their hands and states, "I only just met him. We're not exactly friends yet and I can't handle this. I knew I should never have gone outside." The hands immediately state, "This is your problem. It's what you always do. You always hide where you know you'll be safe and never try to solve your issues. Don't you see that trying to remove yourself from the picture is what hurts you most of all? You're doing this to yourself." And finally, Nanashi asks what to do, and the hands state, "You are not your right hand or your left hand. You are you. Your right hand and I both love you. We're not going to criticize you. So why don't you come up with your own answer this time?" And Nanashi finally, I think, at this point sheds the using of their hands to help them reconcile and move through their thoughts and process them. And they remember how Hachimaru had stated last chapter that if you never draw your blade from its sheath, you'll never know how finely it can cut. And finally, Nanashi has this moment where, as a cannonball is fired once again at Hachimaru, and the pig brothers are stating, "You're done, samurai," Nanashi runs up and grabs the sheath of the sword at the same time that Hachimaru does. and they're able to pull it out together and slice apart the cannonball. Hachimaru looks at Nanashi in disbelief, and Nanashi states, "I can't believe what I'm doing. Keep a firm grip and pull me along, Hachimaru. I think that together we..." And they look at each other and they know what the other is thinking. And Hachimaru immediately turns to Hayataro and asks if Hayataro is ready. And they jump on Hayataro's back while the pig brothers are screaming about how they cut the cannonball and now that they're flying above them and asking where they went. And from flying on Hayataro's back, they jump off and together slice down this sword and they cut the tank clear in half. And through this, they also slice the older pig brother's armor off. And while it's all falling apart, you can see that he is actually just a bushi who wore pig-like armor, but he's just a regular man. And this indicates that he's not a samurai like I had theorized last episode. Instead, he is just a bushi along with his other brothers, and they're just ronin who are terrorizing people. But he states this can't happen. And Hachimaru, in all of his wisdom that he learned from Daruma, states that helmet you've got is weaker than underwear. And Hachimaru and Nanashi are holding the sword together and cheering and celebrating while everyone surrounds them to celebrate as well. It finally cuts to them finding Hachimaru's model sword, which still is just as effective according to Daruma. And Hachimaru states, "There it is, nice find, Hayataro," where Hayataro has it in his mouth. And Nanashi states, "I'm so glad you didn't lose your katana." Hachimaru equips the sword to his belt or his robe or something, whatever that is, his sash. And he states to Nanashi, "Without this at my side, I feel like I might as well not be wearing any underwear." And Nanashi thinks about this and considers everything and states, "May I say one last thing?" And they state, "When you called me a friend," and wants to talk about when Hachimaru called them a friend. And Hachimaru states, "Oh, not just a friend, a samurai friend." And Nanashi bows to this and states, "Thank you, but I don't want to be friends with you." And Hachimaru immediately freaks out. And he gets so upset and pissed off about this. He says, "What's your problem? Fine, I'll just go find someone else to be my friend." And Nanashi's like, "That's not what I mean. I'm saying in the future, it's not a tank I'm dreaming of cutting with you, but a cake, I think." And obviously they're very nervous while stating this. And Hachimaru is just dumb as shit, very full of rocks for brains, and states, "Huh? What are you talking about? You're making even less sense than Master's underwear analogies." But Nanashi is immediately just upset about this and physically just like wilts. And Hachimaru states, "It's really easy to tell when you're down in the dumps." But Nanashi recovers quickly and says, "Maybe it won't happen right away, but someday, when I become a real key samurai and have my own true name without any indecision, then maybe I'll explain it to you." Hachimaru states, "I mean, that's fine and all, but I'm going to space. It won't be easy for me to get back to this planet. I don't know when we might meet again." And Nanashi accepts this and says, "I'll go visit you instead, and of my own accord this time." And Hachimaru likes this, but states, "So you're going to leave this planet too? Space is a big place. It's not like leaving the house, I'm betting. Maybe we'll both actually die next time." And Nanashi, in actual, what seems to be genuine happiness, states, "I'm fine with that. It's better than doing nothing. This way, at least, I feel like I'm really here." And Hachimaru flies off from Hayataro away. And we finally cut to Daruma talking to Hachimaru's father. And he states, "There's something I want to speak to you about while Hachimaru isn't present. Something important." And Daruma is holding the soul that was taken out of Hachimaru's heart from the first chapter. And he states, "This is no ordinary katana. It's a heart's blade only, possessed by a samurai who has become a key, a samurai soul. The weight of this samurai soul is clearly far beyond your garden variety type, even to the blind like me." The dad looks nervous, while Daruma continues to state, "The fact that you hid something of this magnitude within Hachimaru tells me you are not just some petty thief." He activates the sword, and the dad does not even flinch. And Daruma asks, "Who are you then? Also, I've never met a child with such a powerful gravitational pull before. Tell me, who is Hachimaru anyway?" So that was chapter 3. That was pretty good. I'm very happy with where this series is going immediately. So First, oh man, I have so much I want to talk about. First, we're going to talk about the characters, though, because obviously that's important. The characters are important. We had no new characters introduced other than the Wolf Bushi Legion for Akagi Castle. I don't think we really have to go into them. If we see more of them, I obviously will talk about them more and I will reference back to this chapter. But until then, I don't think we really actually have to say more than that they're just like guards. They're just samurai guards. They have wolf holders, supposedly. There was a control panel in what I thought was the boar holder. That might be a thing that happens with holders. I'm not entirely sure. The series is so young, we don't know how holders fully work yet. But that's okay. So we'll go on to the actual characters and what developed. So first I want to talk about Hachimaru. Hachimaru, we see, and as stated by Daruma, has a very gravitational pull. People see him and they want to talk to him. And they feel that they can trust him and they feel that they're safe around him and they feel that he is someone that they can befriend. This was shown by Nanashi, obviously, has done nothing but trust Hachimaru and gone with Hachimaru through things. And then the pupils show up and many people want to help, even though, like, obviously that's probably part of their duty as samurai pupils to help. But as we saw, the two pupils who Hachimaru was originally talking to ran away. There might just be something about him that allows him to pull people in. But he has a pretty happy disposition. We also see that he shows his emotions very freely throughout the chapter. He, especially towards the end, where everything is resolved, and he's talking to Nanashi at the end, and Nanashi states that they don't want to be his friend, and he's immediately shocked and then upset, and states, bitterly that he will go find a new friend. But then when Nanashi explains that it wasn't it with any malice, he was confused and then immediately went to being, content and happy with where everything has gone with this new friend and with his first friend. So he shows his emotions very freely. That might just be part of his lack of social interactions and that maybe he doesn't control his emotions well, but we see that he controls his emotions fairly well throughout the past 3 chapters, so that probably isn't a problem. He's just probably someone who shows his emotions very freely and will be very true and genuine to who he is and how he's feeling. We also see that he is persistent. We knew that he was persistent. He bugged his dad to go outside for years on end until however long. We don't even know how old he is still, but he lost his arm in the battle, but he continued to fight even in the face of adversity. And he continued to try to draw the sword from the sheath, even though he knew he couldn't draw it, just to help protect people. It's very much lots of persistency, good character trait. I'm very happy with how he's turning out, and the qualities all make up for a very good protagonist, a very standard shonen protagonist. Nothing's wrong with that. We have a lot of shonen protagonists who are persistent, who show their emotions, who have a happy disposition, who try to be optimistic. There's nothing wrong with that. They're all like that. I can't really criticize Hachimaru for being a likable protagonist. Second, I want to talk about Hayotaro. Hayotaro, we're only going to talk about quickly, as we always do. What we learned about this time is that samurai have a term called being key samurais, in which that there is a key inside of them, I suppose, or a key holder. We saw a key in the first chapter that had to pertain to the samurai soul locked within Hachimaru's heart. And when Hachimaru got his own samurai soul from Fudomiyo, we saw he was able to heal Hayotaro, and now Hayotaro is a key holder for the samurai. What we learned about key holders through this chapter is that they're obviously just regular holders that civilians use, that you can operate, that you can program, and key holders, I think, are linked to the samurai soul. It seems that was probably pretty obvious, but we weren't entirely sure until it showed up this chapter, when we saw in the first chapter that the horse key holder for the Ronin samurai used a blade, shot a sort of soul blade out at Daruma. So this is they're probably interlinked with the samurai soul, and that is why they can move their, I guess, skin, quote unquote, around and become armor. They can use themselves to protect. They can freely talk and communicate with the samurai, at least. So I discussed last time whether or not they can actually understand language. Well, now I'm not entirely sure if they can understand language, or can they just understand their samurais. That brings up an interesting question that hopefully we'll get to see, but I don't think that they wouldn't be able to understand language if they can understand the samurai, but like I said, it might just be this soul interlinking thing that might be happening. Third, I'll go to the Pig Brothers because I have a lot to say about Nanashi. But the Pig Brothers, I theorized maybe we would get like Three Little Pig references or something to that extent with their appearance. We didn't get anything like that. That's perfectly okay. It turns out that they're just humans who were wearing pig masks. If they did turn out to actually be pigs, I was going to theorize that humans have these holders because actual animals have evolved past being animals. They're more humanized. They are more sentient beings. But that's obviously not the case. The Pig Brothers were just wearing armor that made them look like pigs and obviously act like pigs as well. But that just might be their personalities. And I think they were just yet another example that people will die. There are evil Ronin out there. There are evil people who are bandits who portray themselves to be bushi, and they are assholes and they just like to kill people, and they'll do whatever it takes to get these samurai keys. Now, they're worth a lot of money. Finally, I want to talk about Nanashi. I'm so happy with how Nanashi's character has turned out. I was very worried we were going to go down some sort of bad road that went with Nanashi's character, especially with their gender, and that Nanashi is a character that doesn't need the active resolution of their gender and doesn't need an active resolution to who they are. Instead, this is going to happen off screen, and I think this is probably the best, most neutral, most true ending that we could probably have gotten with the conclusion of Nanashi at this moment. Obviously, this isn't the conclusion of Nanashi in its entirety. The whole chapter has hinted that Nanashi will meet Hachimaru in the future. Obviously, Hachimaru has to be in space for them to meet again, but how this all concluded is as good as I could honestly have hoped for. So, for one thing, we have that Nanashi obviously has some mental illness problems. It might be just pure anxiety and social anxiety, as Nanashi immediately, when Hachimaru was approached by other pupils, Nanashi immediately developed an insecurity about their place as a friend with Hachimaru and went to be alone and parsed through that with themselves. We, of course, had some reconciliation with a part of their mental illness in that they decided that talking to their hands and having their hands, quote unquote, decide everything for them wasn't helping, and that discussing everything with your hands isn't what is going to create action, and that the hands are part of the body, and whatever Nanashi decides to do with their actions, their hands will always love them. And I think this helped to resolve this issue of mental illness where Nanashi had to talk about everything out loud and go through everything out loud and use their hands as a personality point to find out who they are personality-wise, where instead they reconciled that they could have these two very distinct and conflicting personality traits and combine them and become a person who is full of action, but also someone who cares about others and wants to help others, and that they can be these two people, and instead of having to assign these personality traits to parts of their body. Another great point for Nanashi was that we already see that they're on their way to complete the goals stated in Chapter 2. And in Chapter 2, the two stated goals that they were struggling with was that they wanted to become a powerful samurai and also fall in love, which I found was very interesting to immediately pull into the series, was an aspect of romance in a shonen series, but I guess sometimes you just have to do that. But with these two aspects, we see that there's already a resolution starting to happen for Nanashi's character, even if it's going to happen off screen, but it has to all do with Hachimaru, because without Hachimaru, Nanashi would not have been able to recognize that there are samurai out there who are like Nanashi and who can inspire Nanashi to actually move forward and be better and do something about themselves. We also saw that becoming a powerful samurai does have a lot to do with Fudo Mio, and Nanashi actually, when they felt that they were insecure and did not have a place as a friend with Hachimaru, went to Fudo Mio's shrine and sat in front of it. And Fudo Mio, and technically Nanashi might have actually prayed to Fudo Mio to become a powerful samurai and to help Hachimaru and become friends with Hachimaru, and was stating through their insecurities a prayer to Fudo Mio. And one can probably argue that Fudo Mio sent the tank and sent Hachimaru and gave Nanashi this chance to show that they can become a samurai and they can become someone with Hachimaru. and that Hachimaru is someone important to them, and that there is a way to reach these attainable goals that they have set for themselves, even if they were presented as insecurities. With the falling in love thing, I will discuss this ship a little bit more later in the episode, but just something about Nanashi's character that I appreciate is their boldness. I really appreciate the boldness in just telling Hachimaru that they intend on trying to marry them in the future. Very funny, very cute. I like that this person who's extremely insecure and who has a lot of anxiety issues just outright said that to this person. That's a very funny character trait to see, is this unexpected boldness, but that might just be because of the reconciliation of the hands, and the right hand was much more bold, so this might just be showing that aspect of that personality trait. And again, I just want to once again touch on that I'm very happy that the gender wasn't concluded. This is going to be something that is going to happen probably off screen, and we'll see the result of it, and I think that that's probably the best way to resolve Nanashi's gender, is for us to not have to go through the experience. It is under my understanding that the trans community does not appreciate when cisgendered people tell their stories for them, so this would definitely fall in line with that. Nanashi is trans, and Kishimoto, from what I understand, is cisgendered, so it wouldn't really be his place to tell Nanashi's gender story. And if this is the case and he has some sort of understanding of that, I really do respect that he is just allowing it to settle off screen, and we will see the result of it. Be it that Nanashi is a trans woman, or that Nanashi is a cisgendered male, or that Nanashi decides to remain genderless and maybe decides to even be gender fluid or non-binary, and that would be up to them. I think that's probably the best conclusion that we can get from their character, and I appreciate that this is the conclusion to their character arc that we're going to see for presumably a while. So now that we did the characters, sometimes I like to talk about themes. There's only one theme here that we have seen that kept going. There are some themes within characters, such as Hachimaru has 8, which is a lucky number and being lucky, and 8 sometimes can be seen as a symbol of infinity and also power. We know he also has themes of shooting stars, but that didn't really show up this time. What we did see is more of a flower theme with Nanashi. There are flowers on Nanashi's shoes. The samurai sword does have a flower adornment on it, and even when Nanashi is speaking freely to Hachimaru at the end of the chapter, there are flower petals floating around them. So I think Nanashi is very much surrounded by the characteristic of a flower and blooming into the person that they're going to become. And I think we saw the budding and maybe even the blooming, or the start of the blooming of this. And to have these sort of botanic symbolism surrounding Nanashi, I think this might indicate that Nanashi is a trans woman based on the femininity that is associated with flowers. Another theme that I just want to talk about is the arc theme. The arc theme that we have seen and that was repeated throughout at least these 2 chapters is that if you're going to assume something about whatever, be it a person, an action, a goal, whatever else, you cannot just do nothing about it, especially if you believe that goal and action or whatever is wrong. And so you must take action. That's what a samurai does, is take action against things that they believe are wrong and help people. And that is the lesson that Daruma wanted to teach Hachimaru. And I believe that lesson really ingrained itself into Hachimaru as he went and he did go to help Nanashi when he assumed that Nanashi was a shut-in like him and decided he wanted to change that. And Nanashi even learned this lesson where Nanashi assumed that Hachimaru wouldn't even want to be their friend and that he would find more normal people to be friends with instead of Nanashi, but instead took action to become someone who Hachimaru would want to be friends with and to become someone who would have the confidence to be Hachimaru's friend. So we saw a good conclusion to that theme. Hopefully we'll see that theme in the future, that maybe that this is going to be a theme that Hachimaru continues to teach people. I think this theme really fit in with the chapter and within what our expectations of the chapter was, and I think it fit in with the characters and how the characters interact with each other. And we even see that Daruma is making assumptions about the dad and is taking action about the dad immediately. So we're going to see this progress further. If this is not the end of the arc, then we'll see this progress further throughout the arc. And if this is the end of the arc, obviously we'll show that it will permeate into other arcs as well. So I have a few things that I want to discuss. Of course, we know that I love to discuss Japanese culture and how it intertwines, especially since Kishimoto made a point to state that using Japanese culture will be a big point in the story, so we definitely have to make notes about them. So the big point of Japanese culture today is samurai swords. This comes from the Bio-ID reader swords, and we're shown that, at least for the pupils who train at Castletown, and at least for the Bushi Legion who protect Akagi Castle, they get these specific swords that they can only pull out when they are the true owner. And I don't think the sword really is like, I don't think it's like Harry Potter's wands where the sword picks them. I think it's just one of these magic integration sort of deals where the sword identifies who you are based on like your sweat or something. Obviously I'm kidding, it's probably just like fingerprints. But anyway, the Bio-ID reader sword only opens for the owner. And this is a reflection on samurai swords in Japanese culture. And basically we just have to go back to the actual real times of samurai, where a samurai was born, they actually came from samurai families. So the generations and generations of samurai were from the same family. You were born and you were just immediately decided that you were going to be a samurai. I don't know if you could become a samurai outside of your family being samurai. I'm not going to make any assumptions or guesses on that. But from what I researched and from what I found out, you become a samurai through your family, therefore through your genetics. Which obviously this is one of the tie-ins to the Bio-ID reader swords. When one of these samurai were about to be born, they would have a sword brought into the bedchamber before delivery. And that was to be the honored sword of this samurai. And when the samurai died, in old age usually, their honored sword was placed by their side, I presume in their burial, or however the funeral aspects went for samurai. So obviously there's a sword that is picked for a samurai. That is their honored sword. That is theirs their entire life. And this sword is something that stays with them and is a part of them, technically. This also goes into the Bio-ID reader swords and why they are only for one specific person. Another few interesting bits is that swords were actually also passed down through generations of samurai family. I don't know if it was their honored sword that gets passed down through generations, or if it's just a different type of sword that was passed down. But either way, the swords were passed down, which gives another genetic sort of component to this Bio-ID reader sword aspect of the series. And one final bit that I think is interesting to know about the swords, so we have a full, I think, understanding of where Kishimoto is going with these swords, is that when a sword maker was about to craft a new samurai sword, they would actually get Shinto priests to bless the sword, because the swordsmith would commit their soul and spirit into the forging of the blade. And this is to, I guess, also bless it and maybe even empower it with maybe Fudo Myo or any other guardian that they believed was correct at that time. And this just shows the importance of the swords within the series. We saw in the second chapter, Daruma state that the samurai's soul is the weapon, not the sword. So this might be a throw into how that the sword making was a very spiritual thing that happened for each samurai, and also that it was very entwined with who they are as a person. So to make the swords for samurai in the series be intertwined with your actual samurai soul, especially if you are a key samurai who has this key soul, I think that's a great point for us to consider and for us to understand where these Bio-ID reader swords come from and how they interact, and why this individualistic aspect of each samurai is so important, especially when it comes to their weaponry and when it comes to the culture within this series. So we just talked about Japanese culture. Let's talk about Western culture for a second. We're going to talk about wedding cakes, which is a theme that was within this chapter, so we have to talk about it. Basically, the tank was considered to be a cake. This is probably just to show to us about greed and gluttony and how Some bandits are just going to do things just for themselves. You usually get a cake only for yourself or for your own consumption. Obviously, you can share it with other people, but you usually want a slice of cake. This might also even throw to the saying, you can't have your cake and eat it too, or at least you can try to have your cake and eat it too, but it just shows that you cannot have everything you want. So that might have been a point to show towards Nanashi that if they want something, it might not be how they want it. It could even be to Hachimaru how things that he perceives and what he wants may not turn out exactly how he wants, but the turnout might be just as good, if not better. And then at the end, Nanashi even indicates towards cutting a cake together with Hachimaru, which indicates a wedding cake, in which in Western culture, and considering how much Western culture infiltrates into other cultures, this probably is within other sort of Western style weddings in every other culture on the planet now. But in Western culture, it seems to have originated where a newlywed couple will cut a cake together and share the first piece. And that is a symbol of unity and fertility between a newlywed couple. Obviously, Nanashi makes a reference to cutting a wedding cake together with Hachimaru. And the fact that they did technically cut a cake together, which was the tank, may actually be a good indication towards where their relationship may go. Which I think this is a good segue to just talking about Hachimaru and Nanashi as a romantic couple. I'm sorry if you don't like shipping, but when we have canonical information, we got to talk about it. That's just how it is on this bitch of an earth. I apologize, but that's just how it is. So let's get into this. Basically, I do want to just state that I'm not going to be discussing every single ship in the series that could in any way be feasible. I'm only going to discuss canonical inferences. I'm only going to discuss anything that we see is one-sided or reciprocated, or if there are two characters in a relationship. If it's important to the series, I want to talk about it. That's pretty much what it is. Shipping is part of a series and is part of media, and to completely overrule it and not even allow it to be discussed within the podcast, I think, would be unfair to what Kishimoto wants to do, especially with a ship like this that has a lot of importance behind it. And I really want to talk about it because it's so important, this specific ship, and what it is implying and what it is designed to do. Another just point is that, again, like I said, I'm not going to be discussing any ships that could be anything. Because of this, I'm also not going to discuss a ship unless it's like super important, like incest or any adult and minor ships, unless it's actually portrayed within the series to be a part of the entire storytelling framework, such as, spoiler alert for, I guess, Game of Thrones, the Lannisters. End of that, spoiler alert. We won't really have to discuss it. I will try not to discuss it. I don't want to discuss anything that's harmful in that sort of way because I don't think it's going to honestly happen. I don't think with how this series is and how Kishimoto is that there's really going to be any sort of canonical evidence or inference towards a ship that's going to be harmful in any way. So that's just my disclaimer. I'm not going to talk about anything gross. I'm not going to talk about anything that isn't based in anything canonical. And if there's any hints towards anything that you could construe to be romantic, I'll talk about it. This hint that we were given, or this implication from Nanashi, was canonical. It shows that there's a one-sided romantic attraction towards Hachimaru. I'm going to discuss it because it's something that happened. I just really want to talk about the ship because this ship is canonically LGBTQ plus friendly, no matter which way Nanashi's gender goes. If Nanashi ends up being cisgender, which, as I've said before, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's the correct way to resolve this gender dysphoria and this gender problem. But if this does end up happening, that's still two males, one of which who is attracted to the other. So that would be a one-side canonical gay ship. If Nanashi ends up being a trans woman, guess what? It's still LGBTQ plus friendly because Nanashi is trans. And that's also great. That's just as amazing because the implication behind that shows that Kishimoto doesn't mind having his male protagonist have an option be a trans woman, that isn't a problem, and that there's a diversity between couples sometimes in which one person's gender just happens to be trans, but they can still be a couple and they can still fall in love, and they can fall in love with people of other genders, and they can fall in love together as two people in which one is trans. And I'm saying this because, as far as we can tell, Hachimaru is cisgender. And unless we're proven otherwise, I'm not really going to state that Hachimaru is trans in any sort of way. And finally, if Nanashi ends up staying as non-binary or gender fluid or any other gender that has not been implied through this series so far, it's still LGBTQ plus friendly because they are still a trans person. If you are not the gender that you are given at birth, then you are trans, and that includes being gender fluid and non-binary. It's just a LGBTQ plus friendly ship. It's very good, and we know that Nanashi is canonically at least attracted to men. So whichever way this goes, we do have this one-sided attraction that is LGBT plus friendly. And like I said, this is just a great implication that Kishimoto is not afraid at all to offer us shipping options that are diverse. And it also shows that this being the first actual optionable ship with Kishimoto's protagonist, he doesn't mind that this protagonist's first ship, the first option we're given to that's available, that's indicated that might actually even happen because there's a wedding cake cutting metaphor right there in front of us. It states that he doesn't care how this looks. He wants to show diversity in how people feel attraction and how people are with their gender, and it doesn't have to change how people fall in love or who people fall in love with. And I think that's beautiful and amazing, and it makes me happy. So I think it just sets a great bar for the ships that we're going to see in the future. It sets a great bar for who the romantic interests may be for Hachimaru. I'm really excited to see that and who it might be with, in that Kishimoto wants to include diversity. And even more so, this wasn't treated like a joke. The joke in Nanashi's confession was that Hachimaru didn't understand that Nanashi was confessing towards him. And this might be just because Hachimaru is a little socially inept about everything. And that's just a fault of his character. He might just be oblivious, and that's perfectly okay. We have a lot of oblivious shonen protagonists, and I think that's perfectly fine. The shonen genre isn't about relationships and romance, but hell, if Kishimoto wants to make it part of his works, then I'm all for it. I think that's just because it's aimed towards teenage boys that it doesn't have to be completely scrubbed free of romance. And I really appreciate that right off the bat we're getting some sort of inference for romance, because I think almost everyone is interested in romance in some way, shape, or form. Another reason why I really like the ship is that the ship itself doesn't have Nanashi rely on Hachimaru, but instead has Nanashi aspire to be the best version that they can be for Hachimaru. And they state that when they are a samurai, like when they become their own key samurai, when they have their own name, they're not insecure or unsure about who they are, then they'll tell Hachimaru what they meant when they confessed to Hachimaru. And I think that's awesome. Nanashi wants to stand on equal ground with Hachimaru, and even is willing to put in the work and be patient to be the best version that they can be for Hachimaru, even if it doesn't end up in a romantic connotation. They just want to be this best version. They even want to seek out Hachimaru and show them who they are going to be. And Nanashi just shows that Hachimaru has inspired them in general, and that they would be fine dying together with Hachimaru, because Hachimaru taught them that doing something is better than doing nothing, and if they died, at least they died because they were doing something with themselves. Beautiful, honestly. I'm crying. It's beautiful. It's such a great basis. I'm really excited to see Nanashi again in the future, and I'm sad to see Nanashi go. I don't know when we're going to see Nanashi again. Obviously, Hachimaru has to be in space first before we see Nanashi and get to see where Nanashi decides to go and who Nanashi decides to become, but I'm so excited for it, and I can't wait to see it. No more shipping talk. I know it's not everyone's forte. I know some people believe that ships ruin anime, but it's just how it is. It's part of storytelling. To deny, I think, the aspect of romance within any sort of storytelling is denying a very real and a very important factor to almost everyone's lives. So we're going to talk about shipping, but we're done for now. And we're going to just talk about finally the last part, which is if this is the end of the arc or not, and my predictions I have. So in this arc, I think this might be the end, and we might be entering a new arc from now. But this also might just be the midway point, but I'm not entirely sure. We'll see. We'll see where this falls, obviously. Arcs we'll figure out as we go, whether or not they are finished or not. And right now I'm stating that this might be the end of the arc because the antagonist has been defeated. Hachimaru has resolved an issue with the new character, and they have since parted ways. And the chapter has opened up into a new challenge or obstacle that we will be seeing. And that challenge slash obstacle is that Dharma has stated to the dad that he wants to know what the hell is going on. So, obviously, I think finally, like, I know I say finally, it's only been 3 chapters, but I've been saying since chapter 1 that I'm excited to see where we go with the dad and learning about his secrets and who he actually is and why he has a soul within Hachimaru and why he knows about these soul blades in general. And I'm very excited. I can't wait to see what this next chapter brings and what the story is about Hachimaru's dad. And this might even explain who Hachimaru's mother is, who we haven't seen at all. And this might, I don't know, maybe Hachimaru is half god. I don't know. Maybe Hachimaru is actually, I don't know, maybe the dad fucked Fudo Mio. We don't know. We don't know what happened. But I'm excited to see what happened and who Hachimaru is, why he is like he is, and why the dad has so much knowledge and understanding of how keys work and uses them so much. Daruma even tells the dad that the key that he found is no garden type variety. It's a very specific key. It's a very rare and powerful key, and the fact that he found it, and the fact that he may have stolen it, or the fact that he took it in any single way, is indicative that he knows a lot more than he's ever told Hachimaru, which I think supports my theory that because he knew all this, that was part of the reason why he tried to protect Hachimaru and deter him from becoming a samurai. But we'll see in the future. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen next week. Well, that's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'm so excited about this series. I love where it's going. I love where we'll see it going. I love where we are seeing it go, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the future. I love the characters already. I love everything about it. I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and remember, I only use Viz translations, so I try to release an episode every Monday, Tuesday, and if my computer is really shitting itself, Wednesday, but hopefully that won't happen soon. But I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, what have you, you can always email me at samurai8cast@gmail.com. The email is in the description. Follow me on Twitter if you would like to get the know-how as quick as possible as when a new episode goes up. That is also linked in the description. And remember to like, subscribe, tell your friends if they like Samurai 8. Do what you need to do. I love talking about the series, and I hope I'll see you next week. Until then, goodbye.